from the book of Joshua. And it's a very interesting Bible book. And so far, I believe we had insight into this book. And we can apply the lessons in the book to our lives. And I hope we are beginning to understand so many things in the Bible which hitherto were kind of mysterious to us. Today we're going to look at another lesson which is also very important and which may answer, if not some, one of the nagging questions that we often ask, and that is our God a warrior? Is our God a warrior? In other words, why did God command the Israelites to fight the nations around them? In some cases, to even kill them. Was it a genocide? We're going to look at it. And the title of the lesson is Conflicts of all conflicts, or the conflict. Please help me. Conflicts behind all conflicts, right? Our memory lesson is taken from Joshua chapter 10, verse 14. Shall we all read it together? Since when the Lord heeded the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Right. Yeah. Who can describe the scene here? Why was this statement made or written for us? Can we quickly look at the scene? Because he says there's been no day like it before or since. So what day are we referring to? And please, we have a microphone, so you may use the microphone. What day are we referring to?
It's referring to an interaction between God and Joshua. That's God listened to the voice of Joshua during the war between them and the Amalekites. So, looking at it, the conflict that's behind all the conflict is the one that was between Christ.
I just want us to concentrate on the memory verse. We will come to it.
So that is Joshua and then God.
Right.
Interaction before the war.
Okay. Right. And you mentioned that there was a war between the Israelites and the Amalekites. Who were the Amalekites? Hello? I hope you are with me, class. Who were the Amalekites? And why was it necessary for Joshua and his people to fight them? Yes.
They were foreigners from a different land. And when I think Joshua was trying to, he wasn't confident about himself that, I would want to be a warrior. So when the Amalekites were trying to, make him feel, I'll not say the word afraid, but they wanted to make Joshua feel like he's less of a person. And the Amalekites didn't want to come in a place where, we want to make peace. Yet I think that's what I feel like.
Okay. Any other contribution?
They were the people who came to attack the Israelites when they were not aware.
Okay.
Or they were not prepared for war because they had just crossed the river and they had no knowledge of war. So it was then where Joshua consulted God, and this promise also came, and God listened to him.
Right. So the Amalekites were the inhabitants of Canaan. And they heard that the Israelites had crossed the Jordan River, right? So they put themselves together. They were about 5 nations. They put themselves together, and they came to fight the Israelites because they had heard of them. They had heard of the wonderful things the Lord has done for them. And they knew that these people could come and take our land. So they put themselves together. It was an alliance. Let's go and fight them. And Joshua might have felt afraid because maybe looking at the numbers, they outnumbered the Israelites. But Joshua had a discourse with God, and God assured him, right? So God told Joshua, do not be afraid. I will fight for you. You understand me? Right. So, yes, Andy.
So the Amalekites are also, we also know that they are the descendants of Esau. So they are like cousins. So Jacob and Esau, they were brothers. And they were the grandson of Esau. So they are well known like more or less like Israelites. They have the tendency of being Israelites or the nature of being Israelites. But because Esau moved away from the promise, and Jacob was the one who settled as the nation of Israel, it was like a conflict between them. And they were nomads, so they moved from place to place, conquering cities and communities around them and settled. So they coming close to where Israel was, and they inhabiting Canaan. God asked them to go and destroy that because their way of life, their nature, were not in line with what God has purposed Israel to do. So the war was imminent. They had to conquer them and remove them from their side. They can settle on the land that God gave them.
Right.
Okay, so the memory text is taken from the time when Joshua fought with the 5 tribes, as you mentioned, who came together in an alliance to fight the Israelites who had just entered Canaan. Now the memory text is taken from the angle where when they were fighting, the sun was going down, the Israelites were conquering, and then Joshua raised his hand, prayed to God, and said, let the sun stand still. And for the first time in history, the sun stood still. So it is from there that the memory text is taken, that for the first time, God listened to the voice of a man in making the sun stand still and then accomplish victory on behalf of his people.
Very well. Thank you very much for throwing more light on the memory test. But the lesson says conflict behind all conflict. So there is a mother conflict. The Dutch will say the ground conflict, right? So what is this conflict? What is this, the mother of all conflicts? Where did it originate from? And what are we talking of? Yes, of Mommy, can you help us?
All right, so we know that in Revelation, there was war in heaven. And Michael, the dragon could not prevail, but he was able to convince a third of the angels. So when we are talking about the conflict behind all conflict, it means that the conflict we are seeing today is bigger than what we are seeing. It's as a result of something that happened and that has continued to our time today. So if we understand that the conflict actually started not with us, but with God, then we know it's not a conflict of man fighting against man, or people fighting against people, but it's a conflict of worship or authority. So that is the backdrop to the conflict we're experiencing here. And every day, whatever choice we make, we stand on one side, either on the side of God or on the side of the devil, as it happened in heaven. Yes, what we can say about.
Okay, but in this conflict, we see the involvement of God. Yet we are told that God is a God of love. How do we reconcile this? A God of love who is a warrior, who commands Israel to fight the Amalekites and to even destroy them. How do we reconcile this? Louis, can you help us?
Okay, so when we look at the lesson, we are told that Joshua encountered a man and asked him, who are you? And he says, I am the commander of the Lord's army. And he asks, are you for us or for them? And he says, neither. I'm not for anybody. And then as the lesson goes on, we realize that that person, Joshua actually worshipped the person, and the person didn't refuse Joshua's worship. When you go to Revelation 19, where John encountered a similar angel and he tried to worship the angel, he was told not to worship angels. But in this case, the person accepted worship, which tells that this person is Jesus. And we are told that Jesus is the commander of the armies of heaven. And in Revelation 12, where we are introduced to the conflict in heaven, we saw that he, as the archangel, leading the armies of heaven to fight against Satan. So this introduces us to a conflict that has been going on behind the scenes way before we even came into the picture. And in this conflict, our eyes are open to see that God is, we are not only fighting amongst ourselves, but then there are powers behind. Satan, on the one hand, wanting to have control and to dominate the world and to perpetuate evil. And God, on the other hand, wanting a group of people who will perpetuate righteousness, represented by the Israelites, whom he is leading to conquer the Amorites, the Canaanites, who had entrenched evil. So God was not destroying them simply because he hated them, but because they were on the side of the devil, who was perpetuating evil. And if they are allowed to continue, the whole world will be engulfed with evil. The funny thing is that these people, I believe, would have been forgiven had they chosen to repent and follow the God of Israel. For example, we know that when the Israelites left Egypt, there were some Egyptians who actually decided to follow the Israelites, and they were not destroyed. But those who chose not to, they were destroyed. So even though God is a God of love, he must bring evil to an end when evil seeks to dominate the world, so that he will preserve the righteous.
Again, let me ask, why would God get involved in the war? Directly get involved in the war on the side of Israel?
I believe that because God
do you understand my question anyway?
Israel is his nation, and he has tasked them to reveal to the world who he is.
Right.
And
Israel was his
God's
nation. Very
chosen nation. So he wants Israel to portray the love, the righteousness of himself to the world.
Okay.
So they were like a mirror to mirror God's character to the world.
Right.
So when anything that has to do with evil comes close to them, he will fight it away so that it won't corrupt the nature that he
Again,
wants to. That's why he's
let me
involved.
ask, how was war seen in the ancient Near East? Was it just a conflict between two nations, or it went beyond that? Because the lesson makes it clear that in the ancient Near East, war was a war between the gods of the people, right? So any war involving Israel involved the God of Israel. And God had to come in, fight for his people. So that is why we see the direct involvement of God in these wars. Yeah.
So we see the example in Egypt.
Right.
Because God, when he sent out the plagues, it was against the gods of Egypt. So the war was between, I wouldn't say the gods, because God is only one. A supreme God and then a lesser God. So just as you rightly said, it goes beyond the people, but then they are whoever they owe allegiance to. Yeah.
Right. But God had told the Israelites not to fear. He will fight for them. Now we see them go almost on the promised land, and they're fighting here and there. So did God call them out of Egypt to go and fight?
Actually, if you look at from the beginning, the very beginning, God's intention was never for the Israelites to fight. In fact, as we are introduced to in Exodus 14:14, where the Israelites, when we're going to cross the Red Sea, he told them, you don't need to fight. Just have faith and then we'll be still and see the salvation of God. So it was never God's intention for them to fight. In fact, anytime the Israelites had faith in God, there are several evidence where they didn't have to fight. They didn't do anything, and God himself intervened. They had to fight because at a point they lost faith in God, and they decide to take matters into their own hands. So God says, okay, fine, you can do your fighting, but you realize that even the ones where they fought and they won, always the victory was as a result of God's fighting. Intervention. So the lesson in there for me is, all I need to do is to trust God. Have faith in Him. When I have faith in Him, I don't really have to do anything. All I have to do is to rest in Him, and then He will accomplish His will in my life. The question is, are we able to rest and be still and let God do the fighting?
That is interesting. And if you could expatiate on it, further. What is the lesson in there for me? Anytime Israel trusted God, He fought the wars for them, their battles for them. But whenever they murmured, whenever they complained, they lost trust in Him, they had to do their fighting. And they only won when they turned back to Him. So in our lives, He has given us, but I want you to add more to it.
So in my own life, I don't know about others. Anytime you are going through certain things, you are worried, you realize that whenever you decide to take a step or act on your own, mostly or almost all the time, it backfires. You don't get the desired results. But when I relax and say, God, I leave it to you. Do what you want to do. You realize that the results that God gives at the end are more satisfying, they are more lasting, and there is nothing else to be added to it. But when I decide to do my own battle, now you have to be fighting on different fronts, different scenarios. But when God comes in, He settles everything, and He settles it to such an extent that you know that this has been settled. So the lesson in there, I just need to trust God whenever I take my issues to Him.
The lesson for you and I is to trust, keep trusting the Lord. Right.
Way back,
a brief one.
Yeah, way back when I was growing up, there were these songs that spoke to me whenever I'm in a situation that I don't
want to hear you. So
in the situation that I feel I don't need God right behind me. And these songs reminded me that I always need God. The choir has a song that says that kneel at the cross, Christ will meet you there. Come while He waits for you. And there's this text in the Bible says, come unto me, all you are heavy laden, lay them at my feet, and I'll handle. So I learned to lay everything that I go through at the feet of Christ and allow Him to work on my behalf, because there are fights that I can't fight. Fight that I can't, a physical fight I can do that, but spiritual ones I don't do them. So I leave those things to them, God to handle for me, and I relax and He does that. Sometimes not as you expect Him to do it, but He does it in His own way. He fight a battle in His own way, and He gives the victory to you, and you acknowledge Him that it is He who fought for you, and you are victorious through them.
Thank you. Louis made mention of the commander, the man that Joshua saw with a drawn sword. And Joshua went to him and asked him, are you with us or you are with them? So, Bami, can you help us? Can you throw more light on this man? Louis gave
Yeah, so the answer was rather unexpected, because I was expecting that, with our human knowledge, to say that I'm on your side. But he said, neither on the side of your enemies or on my side. That is to say that God is in charge of the whole universe. So whoever chooses to align with Him will be saved. So by saying neither of them, it means that it is not God who will choose to align with your will or your purpose, but He is standing. So you have to choose to be on His side. So far as the Israelites were on the side of God, they were going to win the battle. And He gave them the strategy, what they should do to win the battle.
And how did this man describe himself?
So he is the commander-in-chief.
He said he was a commander. Right.
Of Israel.
Yes. And Louis, in his earlier submission, said that Joshua fell to worship this man. And we have examples where people have fell before such figures, and they raised them up and said, no, don't worship me. But this man did not refuse the worship of Joshua. So who was he? How do we know?
If you go back to
And
Moses,
please speak out. The
If we-
others want to hear
if you
you.
go back to Moses, when Moses saw the burning bush, the latter statement that the man told Joshua that he should remove his shoes, for where he stands is holy grounds. It is the same statement that God made to Moses when he went close to the burning bush on the mountain of Mount Sinai. So it tells you that that same God, that same person who Moses failed to worship, is the same person who came to Joshua and did not prevent him from worshiping him, because he is indeed Christ himself.
Yeah, but did he say, I am Christ?
No, he
just
didn't.
said, I am commander of the host.
So this was before Christ was born,
Right.
pre-incarnate Christ. So before Christ was born, all through the Bible, he is described as the archangel or the commander of the host of the Lord's army. We see this in Revelation 12, where we are told Michael the archangel and his angels fought against the devil and overcame them. So, and we are in Daniel 10:2, we are told that the chief princes, that the chief angel, the archangel Michael, came to help Gabriel when he was fighting against the prince of Persia, who was the devil, preventing him. So you realize that we are told that throughout Scripture, no one has seen God the Father before, but Jesus Christ has always been with man. So he told the Israelites that before Abraham was I am, and I was the one who was with them. In fact, Paul tells us that the pillar of cloud that was with them represented Jesus. So Jesus has always been intervening in the life of people who stand for Christ. In fact, his answer actually, even to me, speaks to the fact that he's Jesus, because Jesus doesn't stand for only one group of people. He stands for everybody, whether Israelites or whether Gentiles. Anyone who chooses
So
to
as you
align with
said,
us, Swami
yes.
said, he is ready to save. And we see this in the life of the Gibeonites. When the Gibeonites chose not to fight and to rather align with the Israelites, they were saved. In fact, Rahab, of course, was saved. So God is ready to save anyone who is ready to come to him, and that is the work of Jesus.
Right. So it is only God who is worthy of worship. Right. So the fact that this commander, this figure, accepted the worship of Joshua indicates that he was more than an angel. He was God. And as he said, he was the pre-incarnate Christ. So God or Christ was involved in the lives of the Israelites, in their wars. He was there with them. He gave Joshua the war strategy. Okay? So how does it gladden your heart to know that God is involved in your life? Yeah.
It gladdens my heart to know that God is in charge of anything that I go through.
And speak out, speak louder. so we
Yes,
can
I
hear
am
you.
saying yes, and I'm very happy that God is in charge of all that I go through. That's why I always commit everything that happens to me or that I go through to His care. Yeah.
So does it give you hope in the cosmic conflict, the great controversy? Does it give you hope to know that Christ is involved on your side in this conflict?
Actually, it gives the best hope. Exodus 14:40, you don't need to fight. In fact, the funny part of it is that the war has already been won. All we need to do is to stand still. The funny thing is that I think the hardest thing to do as Christians is to stand still. I think one of the hardest is when they say, "Oh, Jinaho, enyashe," you tell children, don't move, just be there. It's so difficult to do. You want to act. I think we are created to act. So when God says don't act, it's so difficult. But if we will believe and accept this as our reality, a whole lot of the troubles we go through, they are not troubles at all. Because God says, I've already won it. I am on your side. You don't need to do anything. And when we choose to accept that, victory is guaranteed and victory is ours. So it gives me a lot of hope, knowing that the commander is behind me. The war has already been won, and I don't need to do anything, and I'll win.
Charlotte, you came in, but you are welcome. Yes. What does it do for you to know that Christ is involved in this conflict on your side? You don't get me. Henceforth, how are you going to fight this war of life, this conflict? We're talking of the conflict behind all conflict. So every day in our lives we have conflicts. But we know that there is a commander behind the scenes who fights on our side or who fights on the side of whoever aligns with him. So my question is, henceforth, how would you fight this war?
By allowing God to fight for you.
I can't hear you, please. Speak louder. And Mommy, I will come to you, so get ready.
By kneeling down to pray to him, telling him your problem, so that if he sees he can send it through someone to fight for you, but if he sees no one can do it, he himself will do it for you.
So who will be your first point of call?
God.
God, right, Mommy?
I think
we are involved in conflicts day in and day out. You're in school, your exams, your life, you forsake, you get up. All these are conflicts. But there is a larger conflict, an ancient conflict, which is behind all these things. So now that you know Jesus is involved in this conflict, unfortunately, he's involved on the side of anyone who allies with him. What are you going to do?
My view on this is, I think, first and foremost, I would trust in God.
I can't hear you,
I would
Mommy. I
trust-
keep saying speak louder, please.
I would trust in God because He's been there for us since the day we were born, and there's nothing that can really, there's no greater power than the Lord Almighty. I think that's it. And also, second, I would humble myself because humility really comes in different ways. Sometimes when you are trying to tell someone something and the person thinks, oh, you are just a child, just be it. I would prefer to listen to the authority, the authoritative voice of God. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So we're looking at the conflict and the origins of this mother conflict. Okay.
Yeah, my question is, when you look at the Sabbath School, it says that the Israelites did not have any powerful weapon to fight. So when the commander came, it was like a point of relief for them. But in our case, where they say that all things work for good to they that trust the Lord, if we are trusting Lord in our situations and we don't have the means to go about the situation, what do we do?
You don't have the means,
You don't have
the resources, or the
resources.
weapons
Yeah, exactly.
to fight this.
Exactly.
So that is the reason why you need to fall on Christ, the commander. Because he told Israel, be still. I will fight for you. So you don't have the means, and yet you are relying on yourself to fight. How would you do it? How would you win? It's just like Ukraine fighting Russia. Now Ukraine is running to America for long-range missiles. Because they realize that they can't fight. Somebody has to come in and help them. So in our situation, we fall on the commander. And who is Christ? And when we fall on him, we trust on him. He has given us the assurance, and it's been pointed out that he will fight the battle for us.
Can I come in? I don't know. The Bible is so nice and so simple, actually. Look at crossing of the Red Sea. You have an army, the most powerful army in the world behind you. But the Israelites didn't lift a finger, yet they won. When they got to Jericho, they didn't lift a finger. They only had to walk and circle. They won. Now, anytime the Israelites decide to go and fight on their own, what happens?
There were heavy losses.
There were heavy
casualties.
losses. By all means, you will die. Now, that tells me when I let God do the fighting, I don't have to do anything. I just rest. But when I decide to do the fighting, I may get hurt in the process, like the Israel, because some people died during the fight. Of course, they may win, they won, but then in the process, some people would die. There'll be casualties. Same way, when I decide to do my own battle, they know that you are going to be hurt in the process. But when I give it to God to do for me, I don't suffer any casualty. It's just victory upon victory. That tells me that all I need to do, leave it to God, trust Him, and He will do the rest.
Thank you. There was war in heaven. Isaac, come in. There was war in heaven. Who were the parties in this war? I hope you understand my question. Who were the parties? Can you help us?
And Christ.
Right? Just that.
Just that.
And what was the issue?
The issue was worship. Because Christ was in a position where the angels need to worship. And Satan too demanded worship. So this brought about the conflict because he raised against the governance of God in heaven.
How did Satan demand worship? What was his accusation?
So essentially, Satan was saying that God is not a just God. God, He demands from people what He is not willing to do. He demands service and worship from people that He is not willing to do. He claims that He's a God of choice and a God of love, but He's not willing to let the angels choose for themselves whom they will worship. So now Satan says, I deserve worship. So we are told in Isaiah 14 that he says, I will ascend upon the throne. I'll be like the Most High. I'll be above the throne of heaven. He wanted to be worshipped. Okay, so God says, fine. Let's see if indeed you can be a better listener. So of course he went about, was able to influence 1/3 of the angels who agreed to follow him. After they've made their choice, Satan still wanted to, become more than God. God said, this one it can't be. It's my kingdom. A fight ensued. He lost, and they were thrown down to earth. So I think the conflict all is about love, choice, and worship.
Hello.
Who to worship?
But
Is it God the Father
5
or
minutes.
Satan?
Yeah,
Is
wrap
God
it
love?
up.
If it's love, does it give people the choice to choose whom they want to worship?
Okay. Let me also add that at the center of this conflict was the law of God. Because to Satan, the laws of God were too harsh. And if he had the opportunity to ascend to the highest throne, he would make it very liberal for them. And since then, Satan has been attacking the law of God. And whoever aligns himself with God, he comes to attack them. Right? So it is not the case that our God is warlike or he's so much in love with war. He wants to see people destroy, kill people. I've heard some people say that the God of Israel was so wicked because he would command. But he had always wanted to protect those who align with him and to prove to the world that he's mightier than the devil. And that if we would align with him, he would also protect us. So here I see the reconciliation of the love of God and his instructions to Israel to go to war. It was for their good and for the vindication of his character.
So you just landed on where I wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was an attack on God's character. And we always say that the law of God is the transcription of his character, which is love. So when you go through the law, you realize that everything in there is for our safety, is to protect us. It is not to coerce us or to limit us or to make us, robots, okay, as the devil was insinuating. So it was an attack against the character, the authority of God. And that is why I think one time, Ella, I think you and your friends, you've asked me that question before. Why God didn't just kill the devil and that will be it? No, you're not the one. Okay. and that would be it. But if he did that, then that would affirm that indeed he was a dictator and all that, not a God of love. And that is why God had to allow him to, for want of a better word, continue deceiving or reign, so that people would come and appreciate and say that indeed this one is the bad one, and God is indeed the God of love. That is why
the time is determined for him.
For him. So all this time, his cup is going to be full one day, very soon. So that we really have a clear understanding that God is indeed a God of love and not what he was saying.
And one of
so
the results
the
of
battle
this
will continue.
conflict or war in heaven is the emergence of sin. Unfortunately, it is our world or our planet which accepted Satan and surrendered sovereignty to him. So he sees himself as the ruler of this earth or our planet. Let's read what the lesson says about this issue. It says, ultimately, God is at war with sin and will not tolerate this conflict forever. All the fallen angels, as well as the human beings who have definitely and irrecoverably identified themselves with sin, will be destroyed. In light of this, the battles against the inhabitants of the land have to be perceived as an earlier stage of this conflict, which will reach its apex on the cross and its consummation at the final judgment, when God's justice and character of love will be vindicated. So we understand that there is an appointed day or time when God's justice and character of love will be vindicated. Any question or contribution?
Could answer the question saying that the reality of the great controversy allows for only one of two sides. So how do you know which side you are really on? So it's a question that we tried answering. The girls tried answering this morning, and they gave a very interesting answer that anytime you are tempted to do something bad, and then some says don't do it, and then you don't do it, then it means that you're on God's side. But when you do it, so you want to lie or you want to sleep when you have to study, whenever you hit to that other voice, that is against the word of God. It means that you are not on God's side. So that was a very interesting answer the girls gave this morning about knowing whose side you were on a daily basis, because it's not once in a while or a big fight that will come one day, but it's every day. Whatever choices we make determines whether we are on this side or that side, and we know that there is no middle area or no middle ground
between God and Satan.
Yeah.
Can I choose to be neutral?
That's what I said.
Unless
Okay, so let me start. Okay, let me give a little, I want to say testimonial experience. Okay, yes, so when I was in school, I decided not to work on do anything on a Saturday. The house mistress was asking me consistently that why am I being lazy? I told my house mistress that, I would want to worship like the church, Alabonians do. She told me she can't let it be. So I decided to tell her that, it's what I believe in. It's my doctrine. It's my principle. And she said that, yes, we would allow you, but what about the others? Then I had to decide, let me just gather a group of people. But the people too were like, we don't want to do it. So I was the only one who felt out of place. So I would say that it's on God. It's on God alone. And if sometimes the road is a bit tough and you feel like no one is there to help you out, the Lord would be there for you.
right.
But
Our
we
time is
are
almost up.
sorry, now
Again, let me
bonfire.
go to the lesson and see if we can answer this question. Why we can't choose to be neutral. It says, since sin has entered human existence, since sin
Pacho yɛn nyinaa yɛbɛsɔre na yɛabɔ mpaeɛ. Mɛsrɛ Mr. Ama Ayi na wabɛbɔ mpaeɛ ama yɛn. Pacho yɛn nyinaa yɛn sɔre.